Hello, I'm Rebecca Hawkins. I'm Director of Design at Boodles. We have a relationship with the National Gallery to celebrate their bicentenary, and the collection is inspired by different movements through all different eras. Their paintings span from the 1300 up to the 20th century. So we very much wanted this collection to represent the whole spectrum of the art that they have housed there. The four themes that we selected were play of light, perspective, motherhood and brushstrokes. So they're all different aspects of painterly technique. The first idea of using play of light came from, as I did a tour of the gallery with the head curator, she mentioned how the artist strived to capture the fleeting effect of light within nature, and that then started the idea of how it could work with jewellery, because play of light is so important to a piece of fine jewellery, as you have the effect of the coloured stones, the diamonds, polished metal, maybe soft lustre of pearls, and how they all come alive when they're worn. There was a particular quote from Monet which resonated with me. When you go out to paint, try to forget what objects you have before you, a tree, a house, a field, or whatever. Merely think, here is a little square of blue, here an oblong of pink, and here a streak of yellow. That translates so beautifully for jewellery. So for your little square of blue, you could have a little square sapphire, or a baguette cut, which is an oblong in pink sapphire, and maybe a little run of yellow diamonds or yellow sapphires, just to kind of capture the shading and all those different colours and how they'd interact together. The colourway of the different suites of jewellery was inspired by particular paintings. So there's one called Morning Walk by George Seurat, which had a lot of blues and yellows. So for that one, I chose some soft pastel blues, deepening to a darker blue, and the same with the yellows. So you'd gradually have lighter and then flowing into diamond. There was another painting called Moulin Vert by Renoir, and I really loved that painting. I've actually been to the bay, Moulin Vert Bay in Guernsey, and this particular painting really resonated with me. It has some quite unusual colours. You've got the blue from the ocean, but then you've also got sort of a pinky tone from the rocks, but also the bathers, and then little flashes of green within it that sort of really sort of stand out and have that sort of highlighting impact. And that was the inspiration really, to try and have those slightly unusual tones together, and also to create lots of movement within that design. So there's a pendant design where it links in between each row of colour, just so as the wearer is moving, you get hopefully the effect of play of light really quite intensely from it. There's a third colourway which we're making just 3 rings for the Chelsea Flower Show. There's a painting by Claude Monet called The Water Lily Pond, and the colours within it are the colours that a garden designer, Catherine MacDonald, has used for her planting scheme. So we wanted to have that addition to the collection that would connect directly to our garden that will be at Chelsea Flower Show this year. There was another painting that really struck me when I visited the National Gallery, and that was a painting called Lake Kittiy by Canaletto. He's a Finnish artist, which I hadn't really been aware of hitherto, and it really, I just felt the radiance that he managed to capture on the water meant it was perfect to be part of this collection. This suite has a very different feel to it. It picks up on the really dynamic zigzag within the painting, and there's a real radiance on the water that the line of marquise is intended to capture, and a sense of, a little bit of the sense of mystery to the painting as a whole, and a certain vastness to the landscape that was the intention of this piece, to try and capture that. There are a few one-off rings within this collection. There's a very beautiful cushion-shaped morganite, a Paraiba tourmaline, and a very fine opal, and all of them are partnered with colours that run around the outside of the ring. So with the morganite, there are pink sapphires and yellow sapphires representing the dabs of colour, and then diamonds as well to give that sense of a highlight and sparkle on the water. And then the Paraiba is done with all diamonds, but with the same design within the motif to represent those strokes of paint. The third suite within Play of Light is called Water Lily Setting Sun, and it's by Claude Monet. It's a really beautiful painting, and it has a reflection of the setting sun on the water, so you have the pinks and oranges reflected from the water, and then you also get little hints of green from water lily leaves that are on there, but then you also have the sort of vertical reflection of willow trees. So this particular necklace has little hints of green from 3 peridots. It has pink tourmalines, mandarin garnets, pink sapphires, and the shade deepens from a paler yellow into a deeper orange to try and capture that moment of the sun setting across the water. I was very much inspired by the Canaletto paintings and very interested in portraying the idea of perspective within a piece of jewellery. It very naturally contrasted with Play of Light. So the Play of Light, you had very transient feel to it, whereas with perspective, you have that much more lasting architectural elements that meant that it would create something very different in terms of its aesthetic. So I was looking at the way that many of his paintings, particularly the ones in Venice, would have buildings that, as they went away from you and disappeared to the vanishing point, you had arches as they got smaller and smaller and smaller and closer together to give that sense of depth within the painting. So I wanted to capture that in a piece of jewellery, and either in a bangle as it's disappearing around the wrist, or in a collar style necklace as it then graduates towards the back. It's also giving the illusion of exaggerated perspective. For some of the pieces, there's also an actual perspective that's happening because there is a lower level within the design. So through the set of arches, you can see the columns of a set of arches behind, if that makes sense, but depicted in polished gold. And the pieces all set with diamonds, either in platinum or yellow gold. I chose to use the Ashoka stone because it fitted so well with the idea of an architectural landscape. It fitted within the sense of the vertical lines and as it gradually disappears away to the horizon. And it's a very unique cut, unique to Boodles, with a really beautiful sort of scissor cut within the stone. And it just really accentuated the impact of the piece of jewellery. One of the other techniques that formed an important part of inspiration was brushstrokes, and some artists in particular have very defined brushstrokes and very visible. One of those would be Paul Cézanne, and he had quite an energetic way of applying the paint to the paper, and sometimes quite a dynamic effect. And it was the sophisticated colour palette of the bathers that formed quite a key part of the inspiration, and so we coupled aquamarines with rose gold for that piece, and then in between is that sort of energetic application of paint forms the motif that divides each set of stones. The second suite within the brushstroke story was inspired by the sunflowers by Van Gogh, and he used quite defined brushstrokes again for that, and they used a technique called impasto, where the paintbrush is really heavily loaded, and you can see those sort of very strong dabs of paint, often in a sort of swirling movement. And for this, we had opals at the centre, and then the dabs of colour were done in yellow diamonds and white diamonds in real sort of defined dashes of colour. So it's almost like you're using gemstones as your paint palette, really, to create this effect. The fourth theme does feature subject matter and composition at the heart of it, and this one is called motherhood. Something that you notice very strongly when you walk around the National Gallery is that all across the different eras and hundreds of years of art, that actually probably one of the most enduring subject matters is that of motherhood. So it features in not just the sort of religious paintings of the Madonna, but it would also be in mythological paintings of maybe Venus and Cupid, or ones of family life where you'd have a mother and either baby or her 2 children or 3 children. And it just shows what an important theme it is, that it is actually maintained through the whole of history of art, so it felt important to include that in our collection. So our jewellery designs for this collection express motherhood through the use of two stones, a pear shape and an oval, and then there's a sort of embrace of diamonds, either white diamonds and sometimes pink diamonds, that wraps around the outside.